We have our next expert session, and the topic will be Global Best Practices and Comparative Analysis in Olympic City Selection by Mr. Pranshu Jain, and will be joined later by Mr. Prasanth Shantakumaran as well. About Mr. Pranshu Jain is the Executive Director of the Sports Advisory Division at PwC India, where he leads initiatives to drive growth and innovation in the sports industry. With extensive expertise in consulting, he focuses on sports infrastructure development, league management, governance, and commercial strategy. Mr. Jain collaborates with sports federation, corporations, and government entities to implement sustainable models that enhance the sports ecosystem in India. He leverages data analytics and technology to unlock the potential of sports at grassroots, professional, and recreational levels. An advocate for modernizing sports management practices, Mr. Jain is committed to nurturing talent in the sector while ensuring alignment with international standards and addressing the unique challenges faced in India. Once again, I welcome Mr. Pranshu Jain at the dais for his expert session. Please give him a big round of applause, gentlemen. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And I must say, a lot of English was written on my introduction, so I don't know who wrote it. But really passionate about sports development in India. I believe, we are at that cusp, as they say, where a lot of more work can happen, perhaps around this Olympics movement journey that we are taking on. And obviously, we heard in the morning, on the kind of initiatives that are happening from the Government of India perspective. So what I'll try to do quickly before Prashant joins me on the dais to talk really about what has happened around the world. And we had quickly put together some, success factors which have made successful bids and, some factors which did not work. And maybe, that can educate all of us. This is a bit of an academic conference as to, what factors India should keep in mind. Obviously, Lambis is a great expert, and he's spoken about a lot of those. But I'll try to keep it unique so that we are all able to learn a bit as we go along. I don't know if this slide will move. Can someone help me with the slide change? Yeah. So not really talking about the process. I think Lambis covered it, so don't want to repeat this. Very straightforward. It's a dialogue process now. We will look at really two stages of dialogue process: continuous dialogue and targeted dialogue process, dealing with the future host commission. So I'm not talking about this as much, but perhaps this might interest some of you in the room. So what we tried to do was to put together reasons for some successful bids which have happened in the past, and some considerations that perhaps India wants to keep in mind as we put together our bid. So one of the factors was that IOC was looking at moving to new countries, geographies, markets. So Olympic movement has not come to this part of the world. So maybe they would be keen to look at India as a potential market. Barcelona, Beijing in 2008, Rio, Brisbane, all of these are examples of new cities, new markets where IOC wanted to go. So I believe, that's a very strong point for us to play on, that the whole Olympic movement has not come to South Asia or India, perhaps very strong point. Second very important aspect, and all of us will be aware, is the bid needs a very strong public and government support. And there have been very successful bids at the back of this government support. Lambis talked about, how the Government of Australia themselves were leading the bid process in their hands, but public support, government support, extremely important. Also, this is something that is part of the 2020+5 agenda of the IOC, where they're saying that, your long-term development goals of your city should align with what we want to see as Olympics. That's important to highlight as part of the bid, but not just highlight, but really plan. So if Ahmedabad or if Delhi or whatever is going to be our host city, what is the development plan of the host city, and how does it align with, how will Olympics integrate into the development plan of the city, and not vice versa. Also, are we seeing that the Olympics will solve some existing problems? And just picking up example of London, or there are many other bids, where we are solving a problem of the city, or we are getting a urban regeneration done. Examples of Barcelona, Beijing, London, all of us have studied, as great examples of how Olympics helped in solving a problem. I think we need to really think about not forcing it, but are we really solving an urban regeneration problem or some other problem of the city? How we are highlighting that as part of our candidature file is important. The new norm is that you should not be creating too much of new infrastructure, which I think will be the case in India anyway. But for us to really say that we're not creating this infrastructure for the purpose of Olympics, but there is a plan in place to how to utilize that infrastructure for training of our athletes. There is a legacy thinking behind everything that we are doing. I think that is very important for them to see. So how much of our existing infrastructure can be utilized? How many temporary venues we can create? I think that is another theme that we would like to highlight as part of the bid. I don't want to harp too much upon legacy. Legacy as a subject is extremely center to the heart of the bid, and what long-term impact the bid would leave to the city, to the state, to the country. I think that has to be the central theme as was being discussed. Whether we'll be able to create a movement around sports development which is beyond cricket, and there is a strong legacy thinking in everything that we are doing. It will be very important. Also, there have been bids which are talking a lot around environment and sustainability. That's very core to the heart of how IOC is thinking nowadays. So, and again, examples have been provided. No mention strong technical concept. We can do all of it, but not have a great venue master plan or a technical concept around the bid. Your bid will not move forward. So technical concept is extremely important, that you have identified the venues which are meeting the IOC requirements to start with, but also all other non-sport venues. Also, there is something that they like to see, that do you have a precedence of hosting the games, not necessarily the Olympic Games, but do you have a delivery capacity? And all of these bids have shown that delivery capacity, and whether our potential host city has that capability or not is something we'd like to highlight. And do you have a strong sporting culture? I think this is something that we will have to really work upon. I believe there's a lot of time for us to showcase that, but cities have demonstrated strong sporting culture. So these are some of the factors for success. As much as we could research, probably it's not documented thoroughly anywhere, but we believe these are some of the factors for success, why other bids became successful. I'll just move to the factors for losing out. Some of these are overlapping, so I'm not repeating. But Boston 2024 is well documented that the bid was pretty good. They were moving very strong, but the lack of public support perhaps didn't work in their favor. But there are many other bids which have got prepared or were in advanced stages of discussion or preparation, and then because of lack of public support, they did not move forward. Unclear funding is something IOC doesn't want to see. They are very risk averse as much as we see the documentation. So they want to be very sure that your funding planning is very clear. If you've not done a proper environment social impact assessment, again, I talked about it in the previous slide. There was a unique case of Doha bid, as some of you might have heard, that climate is important. So when do you propose the bid? It's Summer Olympics in India, July, August, difficult time. Maybe, it's monsoons, it's too hot. So when do you propose the bid? Whether the timing will work for the broadcasters, all of that will become critical. Doha maybe lost out because of that reason, but there were others as well. There was a Chicago bid, which I'm sure some of you might have read about. Pretty solid bid as it was in preparation, but perhaps they did not engage with IOC in time. So engaging with IOC in time is again a very critical factor. Political opposition, sometimes it happens in our part of the world quite a bit, that you may want to progress with the bid, but there is a political opposition. So there are examples of that. Accommodation and transport, I'll probably link it to the technical concept. You need to really plan for accommodation and transport well. You've not invested in sports infrastructure at grassroots level. Very unique example of Toronto, but there are 2 or 3 other bids as well, where they're saying that you are creating infrastructure for elite, you're creating infrastructure for hosting the events, what are you doing for grassroots? Security situation may work against you sometimes, and there are reported cases of doping, cheating, corruption. So I would perhaps think, these 6 plus the 6 I talked about in the previous slide, important factors as we start thinking about doing a bid. These are my thoughts, not my institution's thought, as to what I believe will be important factors as we go along thinking for a bid. I think formation of a good bid committee, and Lambis kind of referred to the fact that I think the number 1 and number 9 are kind of linked. Who's the face of your bid? Whom IOC can really trust when they're talking to right from the beginning. And what is the bid committee? Does it have a sufficient enough, senior enough representation from private, public sector, central government, state government, city government, sports persons, all of that combined? So they really want to see a good, authentic bid committee which has the authority to take decisions, having a good face to the bid whom they can believe in. A very, very important aspect. I think we have a bit of credibility issue because of Commonwealth or many other things that have happened in the country. So we need to navigate that. So we need to make a strong first impression. We can't be seen as people who are not prepared, who are just thinking and maybe, engaging. So I think very strong first impression will be critical for our bid. Also, need to engage with IOC. I think I mentioned it in the previous slide. We cannot be working in isolation, and especially with the new norm and the whole process of dialogue, they are very willing to help and support, potential interested parties. So engaging with the IOC early and really all other stakeholders, I mean, all our international federations, our NSFs, early is important so that, their feedback is incorporated to the extent possible. Very difficult, but to the extent we can. Infrastructure is part of the technical concept, but not really entire infrastructure needs to be ready, unlike the previous process. But really, we need to plan for it because obviously there's a huge gap that we need to fulfill. Engaging with the IOC president as the new term of new president starts in March, knowing really, what he or she is looking for, what are their priorities, what is the priority of their team will be critical. Also, it cannot be just driven by the government and the NOC. I think engagement with the corporate houses, getting the private sector involved in the bid process will be critical. We also need to think of not directly jumping into hosting the Olympics, perhaps thinking of doing multiple other sporting events, both single sport, multi-sport events leading up to the Olympics bid. That will not only give the confidence to the international community that we can pull off big events successfully and non-sporting events like a Coldplay concert, but really building that capability within as well, that we are able to deliver large events. Most important, probably it's sitting at the bottom, but I feel most important that we need to underpin this bid around a strong sporting development program. A lot of work being done by Government of India, but we cannot be thinking of doing an event without thinking of performing in that event. So it has to be around the sports program. I feel if we can get that one right, that will be a great service that we can all serve, whether we get the Olympics or not. So I think that's the last slide that I have. I'm not sure if this was discussed in the first session before lunch, but extremely critical 15 recommendations. I'm sure some of you must be reading as part of your curriculum, the students who are here. But I think these recommendations also need to be in spirit finding a place in our bid, right? So I'm not reading all of these, but very clear line of thought that IOC has set in. I don't know if this will change this year as the new president and his or her team comes in, but can we also do all of this while the structure of bid preparation is very clear, right? So they have very clear identified chapters, annexures, all of that needs to happen, but how much in real true spirit we are able to bring all of these aspects as part of our bid, I'm sure will make a lot of difference. So I'll stop here with the presentation and maybe request Prasanth to join in.
Thank you, sir. If there are any questions from the audience side, you guys may ask if there are any questions.
Mr. Pranshu, you mentioned about the development goals that a city needs to have as a part of the Olympic plan. I think they are also mentioning it, long-term development as a part of their goal. Do you think suggesting something like a combination bid of tier 2 cities plus tier 1 cities in India will work? Because a lot of talk has been around tier 1 cities like Ahmedabad or Delhi or say Chennai and Calcutta, the main cities. But can a tier 2 plus a tier 1 plan work? Because as long-term development for our country, tier 2 cities also need to go up, which is very, very critical for development. Do you think that kind of model would be well recommended?
Yeah, I think there's no very direct answer, but it can work. It can work, but there are some considerations that one has to keep in mind. So one is, we are saying that you want to utilize your existing infrastructure to the extent possible. So let's pick up Bhubaneswar as in talks, right, and may qualify as a tier 2 city. Bhubaneswar may have a great sports infrastructure, so why not utilize it? You want to utilize your existing infrastructure to the extent possible, but at the same time, and I think Lambis referred to it, there are operational challenges when you split it too much. IOC is okay with splitting into multiple cities. In fact, they're welcoming, now they're saying multiple nations. All of that is very possible. So technically there is no issue from a bid preparation, submission, discussion perspective. But can we organizationally pull off that? You are setting up an Olympic village. There is this whole concept of keeping all the athletes together to the extent possible, right? So you set up your athlete village in the tier 1 city you are referring to, and then getting some of them to move to a tier 2 city. There is this classic example of Commonwealth 2026, right? They kind of tried to split it into 3 cities, and then it became, as it is reported, it became a security operational. So challenge that is reported. So if you can pull it off from a delivery perspective, and in India's context, multiple state governments, multiple city governments, different level of maturity, all of that is a complex problem to solve. What is utilizing your existing infrastructure, taking your Olympic movement to multiple cities, getting more people impacted positively. So you need to find that right ideal balance, and definitely possible otherwise.
Hello, sir. My name is Sandeep Dosha. I am from Pune. Basically, in the recommendation 3, you mentioned that reinforce the athletes' right and responsibilities. So, आपको क्या लगता है कि एथलीट्स के राइट्स और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज के साथ साथ जो एसोसिएशंस जो है और जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन जैसे डिस्ट्रिक्ट स्पोर्ट्स ऑफिसर है, उनके राइट्स रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज और उनका इवेल्यूएशन भी उतना इम्पोर्टेंट है नेक्स्ट ओलंपिक का स्पोर्टिंग कल्चर बनाने के लिए, क्योंकि आज के डेट में वो सबसे मेजर रोल प्ले कर रहे हैं और ग्राउंड लेवल पे जो भी स्पोर्ट्समैन प्ले कर रहे हैं दे डोंट अंडरस्टैंड देयर राइट्स, और इवन सक्सेस होने के बाद भी उन्होंने क्या कंट्रीब्यूट करना है सोसाइटी में वो उनको पता नहीं है। क्योंकि अगर स्पोर्टिंग कल्चर हमें बनाना है ओलंपिक के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से तो ये कितना ज़रूरी है, एसोसिएशन का भी रोल इसमें कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है?
Very obvious answer. Association has a very important central role to play, and I think you're referring to rights and responsibilities of the district officers or people in the association. Extremely important. It's the entire ecosystem that that will play the role. You cannot be only thinking of one part of the ecosystem. So I'll say it's very important.
Yeah, maybe I can just add on to it. Actually, if you look at the medal tally that we get in Asian Games was good, but Olympics not so good. Somebody needs to be held accountable for it, actually, in the sense that the association who are fielding those people in different discipline, it's the association that is fielding the number of people, and IOA sends them to Olympics. So I think it's very important that we hold somebody accountable. But I think recently what happened to us in Paris Olympics, Lakshya Sen didn't win, and there was a comment made by Prakash Padukone that the athletes also needs to take responsibility. Actually, there is a very good point in that, because the reason is there is top scheme that is funding a lot of money to the athletes. Then athletes gets nutritionists, athletes get masseur, athletes gets what is it, physiotherapy, mental conditioning, all of this. Finally, he has to go and perform. And Olympics is a different ball game. But I'm just saying that athletes are as responsible to get, because they get everything from the association. If you go and talk to the association right now, they'll say, we do everything for the athletes, but they sometimes falter. Maybe some not the commitment, discipline, many things come in. So I think it is a dual responsibility of the association to make sure that performance is there, but athletes as important, because they are the one finally going to the ground and performing. Leave a team game, but individual, lot more.
So let me bring back to the initial discussion, although I'm so sorry for joining late. But I would like to know about from both the firms which are sitting right ahead, what are the nitty-gritties of having bid process throughout the planning? But at the same time, when you have to deal with different institutes and organizations with different area of interest, by and large, how as a firm who holds the right to the entire bid process, how do you manage the synchronization of organizations at different tiers?
Let me address that first. I think finally it is a state or a city that
Exactly.
would be bidding. So the responsibility largely lies on them to put a bid together. So they are the front runner. They'll have to select the people who are they put in front, and as a nation as well. Let's say India is doing it. India needs to project somebody who can get it done. That's what somebody alluded, that the person manning that part should give confidence to IOC that I can get it done. Some people in India, you by perception would have that to say that if we project them, things will get done. So that's number one. Number two, there is a role of consultants coming in, giving ideas. You have global consultants. I was very pleasantly surprised that when you look at the number of expertise in Olympics, through the ages, there are 500 people who have worked in Olympics and who can provide that expertise across. So you pool them in. But you have to bring the India context. You cannot bring all the Western expertise and say, okay guys, do it. It won't work out. The India part of how locally people commute, what is the culture here, and those kind of things. The stakeholder part of it, I just want to bring that there will be state government, central government, IOC, IOA. There will be at least about 15 to more than, I would say, about 60 stakeholders, security. All of them need to be brought together. So there will be a government liaison expert. There will be expertise around the security. So at least about 20 different expertise is required when you put together. And that's a team that does the consulting around what needs to be done. And Lambert mentioned one thing. If you put the bid together very well, thinking about all this, you're going to do the Olympics also pretty well. So it's a tough thing to do that, but you can get it done.
So I'll have a fresh question for Mr. Pranshu. Every time a city goes for a city or for a nation goes for an Olympic bid, they brings a narrative with them. So, for example, Paris started in 1900, and they were having a gender ratio for the first time. Women participated in the Olympic Games, and that was a fresh start for them. Then, when it comes to 2024, they gave another narrative, which was actually a fact, that 50-50% of gender equity they tried and managed. What do you think can India, if it comes on board, because there has to be a story, there has to be a narrative, and Olympic is known for it. So when it comes to India, what can be our possible narrative to bring that bit in, or at least to give a very good benchmark in terms of having a narrative for India?
Yeah, I can give it a shot. So, see, narrative building it has to be a very thought through exercise. But I'll probably play on our youth. The fact that 42% of our population is less than 25 years old, which is 600 million people, right? Saying that the Olympic movement is going to touch population which is as big as the population of entire Europe. 600 million people is a large population, and you've never brought Olympics, or Olympic movement has never come to this part of the world. So saying that it's an entire new demography, hunger for, which is also an economic powerhouse, to say that we have such a large population which Olympic movement has never reached could be the narrative that we could perhaps build upon. And then there could be some surrounding narratives, but I think the central could be around bringing the movement to large youth population.
Maybe taking a stab, I think we both agree on one thing, that the youth is important. But I'll give you a data actually. In India, if you look at, only about 5 to 6% of people engage in sports and physical fitness. It is actually a very, very low figure compared to Western. If you look at US and developed economy, it's almost like 20%. Japan, 60%. So people indulging in sports and fitness as an area, it's very low for India. So can we use the Olympic moment to bring a lot more people into mainstream sports? And 12 years will run quickly actually. So right now, people who are in the 13, 15 age group is where when we get to 36, we would have to compete. So we need to do that at the schooling system itself. So can we use this opportunity to propagate Indians to take up sports and fitness? That's number one. Number two, I think if I ask who is KD Jadhav here, and how many people will answer? Okay, there are a few people. Okay, so India is a cricket playing nation. Okay, India, 80% of the revenue comes from cricket. Everything is sponsorship is cricket, viewership is cricket, everything. So how do we get a lot more people into other sports? Cricket is not a very physical sports after you play, because there is other physical sports like football, badminton and all that. We don't get many people into that. And incidentally, KD Yadav won the first bronze medal for India, and that was in wrestling actually. So if you look at it, cricket means, if I ask Virat Kohli, everybody would have known about it. So I'm just saying it's a cricket playing nation. We need to change that. So it's two things. One, can we get more people into sports? Second, can we more of cricket into other sports as well?
And how about if I give you a follow-up question, that how to materialize cricket for the name of cricket, because India brings it on board every time when it comes to a global map. How about since cricket is now Olympic recognized sports and it will be in the Olympics, how about, is there any possibility that this also could add to the narrative of having Olympics to the global south, that too particularly in India?
Absolutely. I think, don't say that I also play cricket, I watch cricket. But what I want to say is that it's not undermining cricket. But can we leverage cricket as what we have done? Like, for example, if you look at the history of India, when we won 1983 World Cup was when cricket slightly took off big time. And then obviously IPL brought it to the next level actually. So I think leveraging what we did in cricket into multiple sports. So we started the badminton league, now we have a volleyball league. So can all the leagues come up in different ways where you can spot talent? But that is a need of the hour actually. I think what I meant was use cricket as a base, but build all other sports based on similar trends.
So I do have one more question for Mr. Pranshu. This is something else while we keep the narrative aside and we talk about the committal nature of bid process, which was before, and now the non-committal, I would say, nature of bid process, which is now happening. And I guess LA is the example of non-committal nature bid process actually working. What are your initial remarks? That is it good for India? I believe that it is good for India, because when there is no commitment, it is a continuous process, long discussion. It happens, that is good. If does not come, that there exists a future that it might happen in the further editions. So how do you see if this non-committal nature of this particular Olympic bid after this Agenda 2020+5 can actually help India, or how can India strategize it entirely for the movement?
Sure. So I think we can go back to the fundamentals of why this non-committal process was brought in place anyway, and perhaps that may have the answer as to how India can leverage it and how it will benefit us. Obviously, number one is you're not committing upfront everything. so which you were supposed to do earlier, right? So we don't have to commit everything in one go. Is perhaps the first positive about it. The other thing is you can also do bit of phased wise development, right? You don't have to do all the development in one go. You can do bit of development which is aligned to what IOC wants to see, just because you're not committing, right? So the fact that we'll have continuous feedback coming in from IOC, you can shape your strategic thinking of infrastructure development planning or city selection, all of that aligned to what IOC wants to see. So I feel this flexibility is something that we would leverage, but we cannot be postponing things for that matter, because competing cities may be moving fast. So we need to be mindful of what's happening in the competing cities, but still take benefit of this non-committal process that IOC has set in place.
Sometimes it happens that we have seen sometimes non-commitments are taken for granted. Not to be very precisely, but at times, because we have seen a lot of failed bids too previously. But why are they taken into consideration just because they invest a huge amount of energy, time as well as capital just for the sake of bidding? So do you think that this sort of narrative or this sort of thinking that, okay, if we are not even having any commitment, does that give a disadvantage in terms of?
Yeah, no, I think, see, we are going for the bid, we'll have to go full log. There's no half measure we should take and say that we are bidding just for fun. Okay, I think that's the view I personally hold, that if you are bidding, you go for the win. It's like sports. You get into the field, you have to win. I think that's the spirit by which we need to go, and if you go with that spirit, mostly you will win. And India at this point of time has great credentials. Like I mentioned before, we are the largest population, so IOC sees a huge market. Second is, we are the fastest growing economy in the world right now with 6.5% growth, and this has been the growth for the last 10 years, and hopefully it should go on. We have the largest digital workforce out of India, so if you were to bring technology, we can do that. And I said, of the top 10 economies, we haven't done a Olympics, and neither a FIFA World Cup, so we can do that. So I think when we go in here, we have to go with the thing that we win it. Actually, that is one part of it. Second is, there is a continuous process where you can play around, but there is a final process where IOC will lock you down with a contract. So there is no escape from saying that, okay, you guys you are going through this, but finally there is a whole set of contracts that will come for you to agree to them and do that. You cannot pull out later point of say. It's also a factor of a country pulling out of Olympics, which hasn't happened. I think everybody goes through the motion to do it. Maybe the debt and all that would go up, but they're not going to pull out. I don't see a history of somebody doing it, except Commonwealth. There was somebody pulling out recently, and then it got shifted to UK. I think we have to go all hog. And IOC won't let you do a half measure here.
If I could just add probably 30 seconds. I see this dialogue process as a bit of filtration process, right? So you cannot be lethargic. You cannot be saying, I don't have any commitment. There are 8-10 other cities that you are competing with. Someone else is showing more commitment. You will kind of lose out. So you are in a competition anyway. So some level of commitment is required. What is non-committal is the year in which I want to host it, whether I go all in like previous host cities used to do. IOC is okay with that, but no commitment is something that won't work. You are in a competition mode, and the competition is moving fast, so a lot of commitment anyway will be required. So I will never use the word no commitment. It's non-committal in the edition that I want to host, perhaps. In the level of preparedness, maybe the commitment is not as much as it was required earlier. But all of that needs to happen anyway. And if you don't do that well in continuous dialogue process, you won't reach a next stage of targeted dialogue anyway.
Right. So probably the last question from my end, because I've been studying failed bids from Turkey, and it has been an immense failure back to back. I didn't find a very valid answer for it. As a nation who is bidding back to back and who is not getting the sort of attention which could have been given. So I would like to know your insight on that particular thing, and maybe then we can conclude the session.
I frankly don't know about the Turkey bid, so won't comment.
Even I don't have the details, so I don't have specifically. Yeah. Generally, I think we were discussing about the commitment of a country. If you do half measures and go into the bid state, then it won't work out. Second is political upheaval, political changes, alignment. Those kind of things play a role in it. I think when you go to a bid, I've seen what are the bids that have won recently? London, Brisbane, all are pretty developed countries. They know how to organize. So I think if you show the same level of commitment to get it done, it works out. If you are not doing it just for saying that India hasn't done for so many years and you need to give it to us, I don't think that's the way. And when those come across, IOC will also think twice about giving it to a country which says it's my right to do it, and obviously you don't have the master planning, the infra, all of this. But again, having said that, now India, Ahmedabad, I don't know the city, but I'm just saying that we have the biggest stadium worldwide. So there are a lot of positives that we should leverage for this one. But like I said, if you don't show half commitment, then it plays around.
So definitely this was from a researcher's perspective, that what actually brings a failure, so that we might address. So I would like to ask our audience to give a big round of applause to our big four, two of our big fours, KPMG and PwC, Mr. Pranshu and Mr. Prasanth sir.